Welcome to another video. On this channel, we share Bible stories to help you grow in your Christian journey. If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to subscribe and share this video with someone who might be encouraged by it. In today's video, we're exploring the powerful story of Joshua and the Israelites crossing the Jordan River. This story is found in the book of Joshua, chapters 3 and 4. Let's dive in and see how God made a way for His people and what lessons we can learn from their journey of faith.
The sun was just beginning to rise over the land, casting a soft golden light across the camp of Israel. Thousands of people were waking up, families, children, elders, all part of a journey that had already taken years. They had wandered through the wilderness, faced battles, experienced miracles, and now they stood on the edge of something new. In front of them flowed the Jordan River. It wasn't a small stream you could step over. It was wide, deep, and at this time of year, it was overflowing its banks. The water rushed swiftly, powerful, and unrelenting. On the other side of that river was the land God had promised them, a place of hope, rest, and new beginnings.
At the center of it all was Joshua, their leader. He had taken over after Moses, a man they had trusted for so long. Now Joshua carried the weight of leading an entire nation into a future they had only heard about. Imagine the pressure, standing there, looking at that river, knowing everyone is watching you, waiting for direction. Joshua didn't panic. He didn't rush. Instead, he listened to God, and God spoke to him clearly. "Tell the people to get ready. In 3 days, you will cross this Jordan." There was a promise, but there was also preparation. After those 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp with clear instructions. "When you see the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance between you and the Ark. Do not go near it." This wasn't just about movement, it was about guidance. The Ark represented God's presence, and the people were to follow where He led, even into unfamiliar territory. Joshua then spoke to the people with a sense of expectation. "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you." There was a call to prepare, not physically, but spiritually. Something significant was about to happen, and they were being asked to ready their hearts for it. Then Joshua gave a direct command to the priests, "Take up the Ark of the Covenant and pass on ahead of the people." And they did exactly that. They lifted the Ark onto their shoulders and began to move in front of the nation, leading the way toward the very obstacle that stood before them. That detail is powerful. They had never gone this way before. It speaks to every moment in life when you step into the unknown, a new season, a new calling, a new challenge. It can feel uncertain, even overwhelming. But just like the Israelites, they weren't meant to lead themselves, they were meant to follow God's direction. At the same time, the Lord spoke to Joshua with a deeper purpose behind what was about to happen. "Today, I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses." This moment wasn't only about crossing a river. It was also about confirming Joshua's leadership and reminding the people that God was still with them, just as He had always been. Joshua then gathered the people and said, "Come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God." He wanted them to understand exactly what was happening. "This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that He will certainly drive out before you all the nations in the land ahead." This crossing would be a sign, not just of provision, but of promise. God was not only bringing them through the river, He was going ahead of them into everything that was to come.
So the moment came. The people broke camp and began moving toward the river. The priests carrying the ark walked ahead of everyone else, leading the way. The Jordan was still overflowing, the current still strong, Nothing looked different. Nothing suggested that a path was about to appear. Then the priests reached the edge, and they stepped in. The instant their feet touched the water's edge, the river responded. Upstream, far away near a place called Adam, the water stopped flowing. It began to pile up in a heap, while the water flowing down toward the Dead Sea was completely cut off. What had been a rushing river was suddenly divided, leaving dry ground in its place. The priests carrying the ark moved into the middle of the Jordan and stood there, firmly planted on dry ground. They did not move. They held their position as the presence of God remained at the center of the path. Then the people began to cross. All of Israel passed by, families, children, elders, an entire nation walking through the riverbed that had just moments before been filled with water. Step by step, they crossed over, directly opposite Jericho, moving toward the promise that lay ahead of them. And the priests remained there in the middle, standing still, holding the ark, until every single person had made it across. No one was left behind. The crossing was complete only when the whole nation had safely reached the other side. In that moment, it became clear. God, who had led them through the wilderness, was still with them. God, who had made a way before, was making a way again. And what stood in front of them as an impossible barrier had become a path, because they followed His lead and stepped forward in faith. After the entire nation of Israel had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord gave Joshua a new instruction. He told him to choose 12 men, one from each tribe, and send them back into the middle of the river where the priests were standing. Each man was to take a large stone and carry it to their camp, placing it where they would stay that night. These stones were not just ordinary rocks. They were meant to serve as a sign, a lasting memorial of what God had done. Joshua called the 12 men and gave them their instructions. Each stone would represent one tribe of Israel, and in the future, when children asked about them, the Israelites could explain that these stones marked the miraculous crossing of the Jordan, when God stopped the waters so His people could pass on dry ground. The Israelites obeyed Joshua exactly as he commanded. They carried 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan to their camp and set them down. Later, Joshua set up these stones at Gilgal on the eastern border of Jericho, so they would remain visible for generations. He told the people that whenever their descendants asked, "What do these stones mean?" they should recount the story of how Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground, just as God had done for them, repeating the miracle of the Red Sea. These stones stood as a permanent reminder of God's power, faithfulness, and the importance of remembering His mighty works so that every generation would know to trust and revere Him. Here are some power lessons we learn from this story. 1. Faith in transition. Crossing the Jordan required faith from the Israelites. God often calls us to move forward even when the path isn't clear. The Israelites didn't see the river part before they moved. They followed step by step. It reminds us that obedience matters, even when it doesn't make sense, and that God makes a way where there seems to be no way. The river didn't simply slow down. It stopped completely. God didn't just make it easier, He made it possible. 2. God's timing is always best. The Israelites had waited 40 years to get to the Promised Land. At some point, some of them may have given up and lost all hope. But when the right time came, God made everything possible, despite the hindrances. We are to pay attention and be attentive to God's timing in our lives. 3. Memorials of God's work. The children of Israel marked this memorable victory with stones. As Christians, we are to remember and celebrate all that God does in our lives and share these testimonies with people around us. And maybe today you're standing in front of your own Jordan River, something in your life that feels overwhelming, uncertain, or impossible to cross. You may not see the way yet, and you may not understand how it will work out. But sometimes the next step is simply to trust and move forward. Not because you have all the answers, but because you believe God is leading you. When you take that step, you may find that what once seemed impossible begins to shift. The path begins to appear, and before you know it, you're walking through something you once thought you could never get through. One day, you'll look back and have your own stones, moments you can point to and say, God brought me through that. Because the same God who made a path through the Jordan is still making paths today. I hope you enjoyed this video and it encouraged you today. Please leave us a comment, like, and share with a friend. Until next time, God bless you.